You're listening to Our Space with Matt Vettese.
If you've ever been watching YouTube or MTV or Much Music, if you're in Canada, and have wondered, like, what goes into making a music video? What is it? Today, we're talking to Michael Herrick, the man responsible for some of your favorite modern emo music videos, from Hot Mulligan to Real Friends. He's worked with a bunch of your favorite bands, and he's here to talk to us today. Thank you so much for joining the show today, Michael.
Hello, Matt. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Do you prefer Michael or Mike?
I'm a Michael guy.
You're a Michael guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not many Michael guys out there anymore. Everyone goes by Mike.
It's pretty proper.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty proper gentleman, so formality.
A prim and proper gentleman making some prim and proper music videos, but not always. Some of them can get pretty wacky, and I love
pretty
that.
Kooky. Yeah.
Yeah. Some are just wild for no reason. I'm thinking about the latest Hot Mulligan video, or it was just, I don't know what it was. I do want to talk about that later on in the show, but I do want to know first and foremost, like, how did you get into this?
Yeah. I started making videos just out of I was out with Hot Mulligan like early on, like 2015 as their photographer. And then like once they had a little bit of money to like put some budget into a music video, they were like, hey, guy that is holding the camera around us, can we pay you a small amount of money to put your best effort towards a music video? I was like, yeah, I'll try. And that was like, I think my first music video was in like 2015 or 2016. So that was like my introduction into it. And then it just is kind of like snowballed into a career on accident. But
so you started out as a photographer?
Yeah. I had like a Canon T2i back in 2014, 2015. And then just one day switched on the video setting and tried that for a little bit.
And how did you basically get the gig with Hot Mulligan, and how do you start with that?
Yeah, which I guess now I should talk. That feels like a big deal because Hot Mulligan's big now.
Yeah, but at the time in 2015,
we were all just like dumbass, like 19-year-olds playing basement. So it was a very different Hot Mulligan than what is around today. But the first tour that like kind of started it all for this like little niche that we're in, it was a band called Kayak Jones and then Hot Mulligan. I was originally supposed to go out on tour with Kayak Jones with my band over like a winter break between college. And then I was like talking with Brandon, the drummer of Kayak Jones, which then became the drummer of Hot Mulligan. We were like, yeah, let's do this tour together. Our bands are sick, whatever, emo, blah, blah. And then like 2 weeks before then, Brandon was like, hey, a bigger band just like offered us this little Midwest run. We're going to just take that. Sorry, we're not going to go on tour with your band. Which I was heartbroken and still hold resentment. But Brandon was nice enough to be like, yeah, I saw you have a camera. Do you want to come along and take pictures? And I said, hell yeah, sir. I'll be there in 2 weeks.
So you just kind of started touring, taking some pictures. Did you have any like formal training, or did you just kind of like buy a camera and start shooting?
I just bought a camera, like specifically to shoot local shows in my hometown. But I don't know anything proper. I got a degree in social work. So it was like a very different career path once I graduated. But you had no proper anything. All on the job in the van learning.
Kind of learning as you go. I love that. It's just, I guess, being a part of the scene and being in the right place at the right time, building that community sort of led you to this opportunity is what it sounds like.
Yeah, which is very cool. It's been like super organic. So I've never felt like weird pressures on like proving myself. I can just like walk into whatever band I'm working with and be like, sup, I'm an idiot. I try really hard and I'm nice. And it usually, the vibe comes and we have a solid product at the end of it.
They're like, well, that checks off 2 out of the 3 things that we wanted out of a person there. We didn't really care for the niceties, but you've got the other 2.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. And that's great. When it comes to the video side of things, like, did you have any sort of video experience? Because I mean, your videos are very artsy, and to go from not really having any photography training into just kind of messing around, figuring it out as you go. And then it sounds like you kind of just went on into video producing and editing without really any experience and kind of figuring it out as you go. Or did you have some sort of past experience with all of that as well?
No, none. I mean, I'm a big consumer as a 28-year-old. I love looking at screens. That's been a big passion of my life. So just like being, like really looking at what happens in like music videos before me. But no, and like if you watch a lot of my earlier stuff, I have no idea what's going on. So it's been like I feel like now I'm at a point in my life where I can be like, yeah, I did this music video and I will claim it. Because of like, the basic lessons I've learned in the last decade or whatever. But yeah, no knowledge or training on much.
That's great that you're just able to like figure it out, and you just had these awesome friends in this awesome band, and they were able to trust you into just sort of figuring it out and doing it as you go. And I mean, your videos now, like they're great. You've got that experience, you've got that resume now. But yeah, that's really cool to kind of hear how you went from like, hey, I'm just going to take this into turning it into something that sounds like it's, now full time and super awesome. I love that you pointed out though, as well, that you're just a big consumer. Are you very analytical with the things that you consume? Like, do you like pick apart things?
Yeah, especially now. Cause like, like whatever, we all love the screen. But then like now that I'm like getting into more like producing and then like learning like the points of being a director of photography, I can't enjoy anything anymore. Cause I'm like, oh, how much did this location cost? Like I'm watching The Bear right now and I'm like,
so
focus on what's happening. Yeah. I'm like,
I think we just finished episode 6.
Everything on screen. Okay. Yeah. So it's, so analytical, like in the first place. And then now that like, this is my career, it's even worse. I'm obsessed with looking at everything that's on screen and then thinking about everything that goes on behind it, which makes me appreciate things much more than like the director. And I've watched a lot of credits in the last few
You're
years.
watching the credits now that you're doing this.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I feel like that's one thing that if you want to be creating videos or content or any sort of artistic work, like being a consumer first is so important, because you know what you like, and to learn what you like. And even if there's someone out there that's not doing the things that you like, what you like, so just make what you like, like even when I'm making my videos on social media, like I have watched so much other content. I've scrolled TikTok for hours and hours and hours on end. And it's like, okay, I really like this about that, and I don't like that about that. And so it's kind of like, I use those as little tips and tricks for my personal videos, where it's like someone has a hook and I'm just like, that's a brilliant hook. How can I turn that and twist it and use it in my way that makes it a Matt Vettese hook? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So kind of that's I'm kind of curious if that's sort of what you've been doing with your music videos in terms of the shots and the angles and telling a story over 3 minutes to a song.
Yeah, that's like it's a very fine line when you're thinking about consuming, which like we're getting a little heady now, but like I think there comes a point where you need to like start out like consuming media, understand like what you like, what are influences, what's the history of X, Y, or Z. But then I found myself like in a rut where it was like all I was doing was consuming, and I wasn't like actually jumping into the next stage of like creating something off of the knowledge and like learning the lessons of the industry and actually like putting out a product for others to consume. I got in a rut for a long time. So I like it's good to consume, but it's also like very important to create, or else it feels like you're getting sold too much stuff, you know?
Yeah, I feel like there's a rut that can kind of come from both ways, and correct me if this, feels different for you, but sometimes there's like an overconsumption rut where you're not creating and growing. And then there's other times where there's a creation rut where you're kind of like creating things, but maybe they're not as good as you feel like they are. And it's kind of because you stopped creating. At least that's the way that I've found with me, where like I'll go like a week or two without putting out a video or creating a video. And I'm like, I'm in a rut. Like I don't have any ideas, whatever. I'm just consuming. And then I'll have others where, I'm putting out so much content, but it's not performing as well. And it's kind of like, well, maybe I'm just doing the same thing and people are tired of it. And maybe I need to like look and get some fresh ideas and get that inspiration by consuming, right?
Yeah. Which then it's so hard because then like thinking about consuming or like consumption overall, and then with like the lens of like marketing music. So it's like taking like an extremely intimate, passionate art form, like emo music, and then throwing like the idea of consuming on it. Like, how do I get the most eyeballs on this video and retain viewership for like 3 minutes long? So you have to like, I mean, I hate this, but like while you're shooting, you need to be thinking like, do I need to go wider so this will fit like a mobile layout? So it kind of sucks. It's cool. Like vertical content is awesome, and I love like how media is going around, but it does change how you approach treatments and music videos, because it's like it's so different than what it was like 5 years ago, in like good and bad ways. Because also like with music videos, like you need to have viewer retention for the 3 minutes. So you need to have like fast cuts, crazy shit going on all the time, which is cool. But then like you get lost and then you're not thinking about like broader narrative stuff or like compositions, because you need to get like quick cuts or something visually interesting. So it's harder to tell a story when you have that in the back of your mind of like, this needs to be consumable because everyone's going to like scroll in 3 seconds if it's not something visually interesting.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a fine line now between like just that, like that YouTube content versus the TikTok content. So you're kind of trying to find something with the way that you shoot that would fit into both. Is that correct?
Yeah. Both like within frame and then the content of it.
Yeah, and like making sure that you're actually hitting the retention of TikTok versus the retention of YouTube, because those are two completely different things.
And then taking like the budget that the label gives you and honoring both. So it's like, we need to have a good YouTube video, but we also need to like keep a bunch of 14-year-olds addicted to their screen. Do them both at the same time.
How do you, I guess, come up with the narratives for each song?
Yeah, I think my approach has led me to have this answer. So like a lot of the times the band or label comes to me and they're like, hey, can you write a treatment? Which like a treatment is like the beats of the video. So they'll be like, can you write a treatment for this? We'd like to hear what you think about when you first hear this song. And then other times artists will like reach out directly and they'll be like, yo, we know what we want to do. Let's do it. We just need like someone to direct this and to like produce everything. Like we have a lot of creative direction. So it's like 50-50, like band or artist coming with an idea and then me thinking of it is the other half, which I kind of like that balance. Because like realistically, I'm putting out like 3 to 4, 5 music videos a month. I don't have the creative capacity to like deliver something like totally unique and original all on my own. And like artists, it's like their music, like they care the most. So a lot of the time they're like, yeah, I want this to look like this. I want it to be about this. So then it's cool to like collab with artists and be like, yeah, we don't have the money for that, but let's dial it back. We could do something like this and like still get to the root of your idea. and make it like a feasible production, which is cool.
Do you find that artists usually come to you with ideas, or are there many situations where they're coming to you and being like, hey, you're the expert, take care of us and come up with something?
Yeah, the last few months it's been pretty heavy towards artists' ideas. I've like written a couple treatments on specific stuff. No, but yeah, it's about half and half.
Okay.
And like a lot of like writing with the artist, like Hot Mulligan, for example. Like usually that's one of the band members coming to me and being like, yo, I like this idea. And then I'll like take it and kind of run with it, and like put my own spin on the original idea. And then sometimes it's like literally just like, we need a treatment in 24 hours, get it to a stat, think of something, you know?
I guess it's all like different situations and different bands, right? What's something that most people don't know about making a music video?
I think to make a good music video, it's so insanely difficult. Probably not the most interesting answer, but having like producing and directing a music video successfully is like one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my entire life. Because like you think of like, oh, this is the idea, and then there'll be a band performance and whatever. But the logistics behind that of like taking like $37 and then stretching it to be like a $15,000 music video, it's so stressful.
It takes a lot of skill though.
A lot of skill, and also like being respectful of others. Because like as a producer, you don't have any money. So you need to get like that $15,000 look for, you know, like pocket lint. So it's hard to be like, can I do this? All right, cool. Can I do this tomorrow? And we're going to stay after hours too. That's cool with you, right? We're all nice people. But music videos are also badass. So it's like, it's easy to have very tall asks because like everyone loves music videos, you know?
And what about like the behind the scenes part of it? Like when you're actually filming, you've got your idea, you're filming it, like the band's lip singing to their own song. Is there anything that kind of happens within that process that people might not be aware of?
Yeah, I guess with like talking about like band performance, a lot of the times like the band isn't exactly thinking about the edit. So they aren't delivering the energy to the degree that they need to, or they're over delivering. So like as a director, it's super important to be mindful of the edit. Because like day of production's sick. There's like 20 people standing around looking at you performing. So they're like, you know, like, yo, bring it really heavy. It's the final chorus. Let's go hard. You know, screaming that. So they're like going hard. It's sick. And then we hit it like 20 more times and having to be like, yo, it's the second verse. Calm down. It's not going to pair well in the edit if you're like head banging and sweating super hard when it's like the calm part of the song, you know? So you have to be like mindful of that.
How many times on average do you have the band playing, you know, if that's part of the music video? Do you have the band playing their song? Do you need to constantly record it? Is it about 20 times?
Yeah, it depends on how interested the client is in the video. I just did a project for a bigger artist that like didn't have a lot of time in their schedule. So I like knew that mentally. So I was like, okay, I could probably get like 7 takes out of like these 2 people, which is very minimal, very minimal. And then we got to production and I think we got 4 takes out of them.
It's not many.
So like 4 minimal, we were like rocking 2 cameras. So that was helpful. But usually, yeah, like doing like 3 full band, like on a tripod, handheld, dolly, and then going in and doing isolation, like ISO shots of each of the band members. I always say like the more you shoot, the better it'll look. Like within reason, obviously, but like we can knock out like slow-mo shots or like handheld dolly and tripod. But yeah, it's usually like around 15.
Do bands ever find it awkward like lip singing their own songs for it? Do you ever get that or feel that awkwardness in the room where they're like, fuck, I got to play this again, or I got to pretend I'm playing this song on guitar again?
Dude, totally.
I feel like
It's
that would
funny
be
though, being
awkward,
like,
lip singing to your own song.
yeah.
It's almost like recording a TikTok over and over and over.
Uh-huh. Except there's like a bunch of people looking at you. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. There's been a few times on set in the last year where like I've screamed with them because we need like a slow-mo take of them yelling. So it'd be like, all right, on 3, we're all gonna scream. Because it is awkward when it's like a 30-year-old like crying, screaming on a microphone with a bunch of people just looking at them.
I'm just a kid. Imagine screaming that into a microphone at 30 years old.
Yeah. Or at least it helps when the entire crew is in on it as well.
That's so funny. And obviously it wouldn't be that specific song, but like just for dramatics. That does sound funny. It does sound like it's a little bit awkward in that sense. But who's the coolest artist that you've worked with? We know that you've done a lot with Hot Mulligan. You've started to do a bit more with some other artists. Any artists in particular that are super cool to work with?
There's a lot. So or you said super cool and then you said super cool to work with. So I'll try to answer those separately. Super cool.
Yeah, let's answer those separately.
Yeah. New guy I've been working on, Co Wetzel. He's like a rising country star, which like I don't shoot a ton of. This is like my first time working within like the country industry, but he's like the coolest guy I've ever met. So it's fun to just like be around him because he's like a performer and everything he does is like ultra charismatic and funny, like great content all the time. So he's definitely the coolest. And then coolest to work with, I think it actually, I mean, like Hot Mulligan, the boys always, but I just did a job with State Champs. And it was like super last minute. We didn't like Ryan, the guitarist, was kind of the creative mind behind it all. And it was so cool. Every single band member gave a shit, which is like hard to come by. Cause like usually it's like one guy's idea, so he cares. But like all 4 of them were like there early. They helped crew load in. Everyone was like looking at director's monitor with me doing like playback. And they were all like, yeah, that'd be good if we could do this. And I think the coolest thing you can do is give a shit. And it was really cool that like bigger artists in like the pop punk emo industry, like genuinely do. Like that was like the coolest like DIY ethic at like a real big industry perspective. It was very cool to see.
I love hearing that because it's always cool to know when bands care, whether that's as a fan or as someone that needs to work with them, because there's just so many times where like even you just have one person that cares, like you said, and then the rest of the band doesn't care and they're just kind of like there along for the ride. And I mean, that's not fun when, you know, if you end up getting to a chance where you meet someone or you kind of hear these stories and it's just never a fun situation. So it's really cool to hear when people genuinely care about what they're doing and they're not just kind of like, well, we're just doing it to collect a check now at this point.
Yeah. Which is like, yeah, I've come back to that a lot recently, like in the last few months, that is like, I almost don't care about the paycheck or how big the artist is. I just want to work with artists that care. Like genuinely believe they have something cool and new to say. That's who I want to work with from now on.
Do you have any, you don't need to name anyone in particular, but any tough experiences with artists, any bad experiences with artists that you can kind of share, or like hurdles that you didn't expect?
Hell yeah. I've had some nightmare jobs before. Yeah, there was like a time, I guess I don't want to go too deep into it, but I like almost walked off set before as a director.
Oh, wow.
Just like an artist being difficult and immature, which is like saying a lot because like I'm a dumbass. I get it, but they were just pushing the buttons a little bit too much. And honestly, that's kind of it. I've got like one artist in my head. Yeah. And then I've like yelled on set at like people because it's like higher stress. I haven't in a few years, but like there's been some stories, but nothing too bad. I probably got like one or two bad experiences.
You've had your Hollywood moments?
Do you know who I am? No, but it's like largely been positive. I try to have like a good vibe on set.
It sounds like you're also surrounding yourself with good people and good artists for the most part and kind of putting yourselves in those good situations, right?
Yeah, no time for ego. It's not what we're doing here.
I love that. I love that. It's so like refreshing.
This isn't the 80s anymore. We can be nice people all the time.
I feel like that's so refreshing to hear because there still are those people out there that think that you need to have those big egos. And it's like, it's 2024. Like those big egos aren't getting you anywhere anymore. Like there's bigger things going on in the world for us to think that we're rock stars for literally whatever reason. You know, like I came up in the Canadian radio world at a time where those egos were basically slowly starting to die, but there was enough of them in there. And it was like, you know, a lot of us that were grinding our way on up and like, you know, what's with the ego? We're all just talking on the radio for a living. Like what's, you know what I mean? And then other people that are like, I've been doing this for years and I've been treated like a rock star. So I'm a rock star. And it's like, no, buddy, you're not the ones writing the songs. You're the one introducing the songs. Like chill. Let's go crack a dad joke and play some Bruce Springsteen songs. You know, like it's not that big of a deal. You're not a rock star. But you know, people in every industry can get like that, especially in the actual industry of rock stars. Right. So it's really cool to hear that you're kind of in that sort of the way that the emo industry is right now.
Mm-hmm. It does help. Like, I'm sure if I did come up in like, I don't know, like hair metal or a different genre, it's just like, I came up in Midwest emo, which is like, it's hard to have an ego. The ultimate when you're ego like killer. Screaming on a mic poorly, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for those.
It's like, what's the ego about being like, I'm sadder than you? Like, what?
Yeah. Good job, buds.
I can whine about my experiences harder than you. I'm the best.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a reason why we all love it. We do love it. You know, do you have any dream artists to work with?
I don't know if they're not active anymore. I would really like to work with Old Gray.
Okay.
Just like an older screamo band that is no longer. They're like a sorority noise, maybe some emo crossover there. Pianos Become the Teeth. Touche Amore. I guess like Title Fight.
Title Fight would be awesome. We need to get them back together so you can film a video.
Citizen. I think that's a realistic goal. They're still playing music, you know.
Well, they just released an album last year as well.
Dude, what is it? Calling All the Dogs?
So good.
Like my favorite release by them.
Like it's honestly incredible. I always say that emo in this generation that we're kind of going through right now with all of these bands, it's actually like the music is better than it was in the third wave when it was at its peak in terms of popularity. Like the third, I don't think anything will like get as good as that third wave in terms of popularity. But I think the actual songs that are being written now in this fifth wave are actually better when you look back at them. Like I'm in my 30s now, and these songs were written for me back then, and now these songs are also being written for, you know, the 20-year-olds. But it's like I'm still identifying with them, and these songs are just like, I don't know if it's just like the time and maybe the recordings of the technology or what it is, but like, and don't get me wrong, I obviously still love the third wave and listen to it every day. Like that's what I grew up on. But like a lot of these fifth wave bands are putting out songs where I'm like, these guys are going to go toe to toe in terms of like actual song ability and songs with that third wave. I'm just surprised that it's not getting that same, I guess, mainstream appeal, but also like media and the mainstream has changed since then too, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you have any like fifth wave acts that you love right now?
Honestly, I would literally have to go through my playlist and just kind of give them to you all because there's just so many of them right now. I would say top of the list right now would be Arm's Length for me.
Yeah.
Also Ontario Boys, so it helps that they're from where I'm from. Really been digging Saturdays at Your Place, Sweet Pill. There's just so many of them, and this is just like off the obviously Hot Mulligan. Like Hot Mulligan's been a top Spotify band for me for the last 3-4 years now. Like just the kind of riffing off of what who I'm loving. I really love Harrison Gordon. His album's actually been on repeat for me. A few of these artists like I've interviewed. Carpool is freaking awesome. I interviewed Carly Cosgrove and had them on the show last week. They're incredible. Like the whole Wax Bodega lineup right now is just insane. Like that whole Wax Bodega tour, it's stacked. Like that Wax Bodega lineup, like we're going to look back, and I mentioned this on the Carly Cosgrove episode, like we're going to look back in 10, 20 years and be like, wow, Wax Bodega's lineup was just all heavy hitters. It's like having My Chemical Romance and The Used and Taking Back Sunday and all these other bands like on the same label so many years ago. That's basically the equivalent. Is like you're having all those big bands, or at least super talented bands. Maybe bands like Ben Quat aren't huge, but like they're incredibly talented, and they're, you know what I mean? I think they're going to continue to age well, like all of these bands. They're just going to continue to age well. So I don't know. I'm really obsessed with all of it from the third wave on. Third wave, fourth wave, like.
Dude, yeah. Respect for you to give some platform to the new guys.
I try to do what I can because I know that, like, I mean, let's be real. When I make a video and it's the nostalgia stuff, that's what's going to go viral almost every single time. And I'm doing my best to sort of mix that up and give more of that love to the newer guys because I have that platform and I feel like they deserve it. And they're, like I said, they're writing these songs. It's why I'm interviewing a lot of them for this show too, right? Like I want to give more people that platform because I feel like a lot of people that grew up in that third wave, like myself, fell off of it outside of that third wave. And so it's like they're sleeping on that fourth and fifth wave. And it's like, don't sleep on that because some of the stuff is way better than some of the stuff that we grew up listening to. Or if not better, like just as good. Stop. Like if you like this, then you're like, if you love this growing up, you're going to love all this stuff going on right now. You just don't know about it yet.
Which is cool that it's like the trope of like the old jaded guy that like, music isn't the same anymore. You can think that, but like there is so many awesome young acts destroying it right now. Like the music is genuinely so good. Just like try to enjoy it.
That trope is just laziness because it's like you grew up with what you love, so obviously you're gonna love it for the rest of your life. Like that's like I'm always gonna go crazy whenever I hear the Used in Love and Death album. It was the band that got me into emo. It was the band that kind of started all of that for me. I'm always going to go mental when I hear that, and sure that I can always say like, oh, they don't make music like they used to, but it's like they do. You're just not actively looking for it anymore because it's like maybe you're in your 30s and now you've got a partner and kids and work and all. So you don't have time to be looking and searching out new music. And then maybe you throw on the radio and you hear like, I don't know, the new Taylor Swift song, let's say, and say you're not a fan of her. You're like, you know what? The Used is better. Like, there's a reason why I don't like this pop stuff. So it's like that laziness of not going out and keeping up with the scene and what's going on and just kind of finding that surface level stuff. If you go beyond that and actually start, going to local shows or finding the bands that are the most popular right now, like I feel like because Hot Mulligan is sort of like top of the scene right now, and I keep going back to them. I know you've been with them since, 2015. I think they're probably the biggest emo band in the world right now out of that wave. Like they're probably the most popular. Maybe you can think of another one that would be more popular. But a lot of the times, I go to Hot Mulligan and I tell people like, if you're not listening to Fifth Wave, like go to Hot Mulligan. If you like them, there's so many other bands that you can kind of find that are like that and get yourself into all of that. And now you're going from listening to The Used into liking the Hot Mulligan, and then Hot Mulligan leads into basically everything. Maybe it brings you into like Free Throw, and Free Throw is one of those bands too that I think that if you really grew up in that third wave, Free Throw is the perfect transition into the newer stuff, because a lot of their stuff kind of still has that old sound with the new twist, and it's, you know, people just aren't, they just don't know, and they're not looking for the good stuff, but the good stuff is there.
It's funny to like shout that from the rooftops. Like, there is still good emo music.
It's just getting better, guys. It's just getting better. We're just evolving, and it's getting better. It's kind of it I think, and you know, you mentioned that you're 28, so you probably grew up around that sort of same third wave, and maybe into like, I call it the second wave of pop punk. Like, I kind of think of those bands like State Champs, the Wonder Years, and all of them are kind of that second wave, because they were kind of right after the Blink 182 and all of that. And I don't know if there's an official term for that. That's the way that I mentally categorized it, because my brothers are in their late 20s, and they started listening to that when I was getting out of high school, and they were into like the State Champs and all. I'm like, oh, this is like the new pop punk stuff, right? So State Champs will always be new pop punk to me. But you know, but like, it's like, you know, you grew up with that stuff, and then it's like, the older you get, I'm like, oh, this is going to sound so dated soon. Like, all the stuff that we grew up listening to is going to sound so dated. I'm still going to like it, but it's kind of funny. You're going to hear the new music, the new emo stuff, and then go back to the old stuff. And it's going to be like listening to, I don't know, who's like a new rock band now versus like a Led Zeppelin, you know, like Led Zeppelin, you go back and listen to it, and like, that's old music. Like, it sounds old based off of the recordings and all that. It's still good. It was good, all of that. But it's like the production and the songwriting just evolves so much. So it's really cool to kind of see how bands are doing that. I'm sure, you know, from your end, you probably see a lot behind the scenes in terms of a lot of artists writing on the back end, and being around artists on tour and filming these videos, and kind of seeing their process, and being able to work with them on that music video standpoint. How do you feel that, I guess, the wave of emo has been evolving, kind of seeing it from behind the scenes and being around these bands all the time?
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. It doesn't feel like any of like my class, like the little cohort that I'm in. It doesn't feel like anyone's like jaded or like gatekeepy, exclusionary, anything like that. Broadly, obviously, we're all assholes, but
in our own little way.
Yeah. Or like take like any of those fifth wave bands, like the smaller guys. It's been very cool to like come up with Hot Mulligan, and then also be able to be like, yo, Saturdays at your place is really good. Like, open this holiday show. Be like, hey, Ben Quad, come out. Carly, come out. It's cool that the bands are still really good within the genre. So like, we can like prop them up. Or like give them more exposure, because they are genuinely so good. It doesn't feel like a favor or anything like that. That's been really cool. It doesn't make me feel old, that it's like, I still get what the younger kids are saying. Like, their music is still good. I still relate to it. I don't feel like cringy or anything like that, which is awesome. It could have not been that way. Like, it's cool that like TikTok emo, whatever's happening over there, that they like latched on to like Pierce the Veil, like older emo bands that like could be considered like chuggy or like millennial, you know, because like Gen Z loves hating on 35-year-olds, but like Hawthorne Heights still like snuck in. Like, everybody still loves My Chem. That's so cool for us and our careers. That like a bunch of young kids are like jumping onto like emo staples, and they're like getting fed like the newer stuff in the algorithm, which is awesome. Like, I remember and like pop punk also had like a little resurgence. I remember like COVID, when Machine Gun Kelly dropped whatever he did, like an album or something.
Yeah, Tickets to My Downfall. Yeah. He dropped that album, and it just brought a whole bunch of people. I think I will give Machine Gun Kelly his credit, and I have on this podcast before, for what he did with that album. I think a lot of people forgot about pop punk, or they just kind of like moved on, maybe turned alternative, whatever. And people started talking about Machine Gun Kelly and about this album and him doing a pop punk album because he was in the news and in the media and on TMZ and all that because of his beef with Eminem. And then immediately after, he drops his pop punk album with Travis Barker. And everyone was like, oh, okay, what did he do now? And you go and check it out and you're like, the sound of that album reminded me of that old Blink-182 sound and that Sum 41 sound, and a lot of us, right? And it was like, oh yeah, pop punk is good. And that did that for a lot of people, of like, pop punk is good. And I miss listening to Blink-182, and I haven't thrown on a Blink-182 record in years. So I'm just going to, and that brought people back into that pop punk and got them to check out some of the newer stuff. So it's like, say what you want about the guy as a person. I know he's got a lot of, he has a shitty reputation, and hate on him all you want. But at the very least, he did spark a little bit of a fire into the scene. Like there were some, kindling that he did into getting people into it. Maybe not all of it caught fire with everyone. And I mean, with those people, you probably don't want it to catch fire, but he did a good job in terms of like giving the scene a little bit of a spark. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah. Like, honestly, thank you, Machine Gun Kelly. We would be nothing without you.
Yeah.
I remember like during that era, like Hot Mulligan's monthly Spotify listeners like doubled within like
really?
a month or two. It was like, what the hell's going on? And I was like, the rappers started making pop punk music. Sick.
And that's now we're popular.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that's actually really cool to kind of hear and see from a back end of an artist view, right? Because it's like, as a fan view, it's like, he's a freaking poser. Like people can just, jump on him for that. And you'd think that maybe some bands would even be like, this guy doesn't belong in the scene or whatever. Like I've seen both sides of the takes. I've seen the good and the bad takes on him in that pop punk album. But it's kind of cool to still see that album and what he did with all of that, like that there was a bit of a surge in the scene with bands like Hot Mulligan because of that. And they were able to actually grow because some rapper dropped a pop punk album.
Yeah. A label accidentally agreed to having someone write this album.
And then he tried following up on it and it was a total flop. Everyone
and
hated
then we
it.
said, one's enough, sir.
Yeah.
That's plenty.
You can go back to rap. You can leave the scene now, Thanks for the surge.
Yeah, go marry a Kardashian now. We don't do, or whatever he did. Megan Fox.
Megan Fox, yeah. Travis Barker, kind of, the two of them. It is what it is.
Whatever. Thank you for your work, fellas.
So all this talk of, newer bands, do you have a favorite newer emo band right now?
Saturday's at Your Place.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say that. I like a lot of them. Like the whole Wax lineup is fantastic. I really like Ben Quad. Yeah, I guess it'd be a tie between the two of them.
Shout out to both of them because both are great, obviously. Go and check out both of them if you're listening. Saturdays at Your Place, Ben Quad. If you haven't already, you're missing out. Thank you so much, Michael, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Love talking music videos with you and love just talking emo with you. It's honestly been so much fun.
Yeah, it's been fun to nerd out together.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you would like to promote to kind of wrap things up or talk about anything before we wrap things up that maybe we didn't get to touch on?
Nothing too much. Listen to Hot Mulligan.
Listen to Hot Mulligan. Absolutely. You should already be. And if you're not, listen to Hot Mulligan. Saturdays at Your Place. Ben Quad. Cool, yeah. Get with it. And hey, if you love the show, please remember to leave us a review. That always helps a lot. It helps with exposing our artists. It helps with, getting the word out there for a lot of these bands that we've talked about. And of course, it helps the show. It helps me. It's a free little thing that you can do at the end of each show is just go and hit that little 5-star button. I really appreciate you listening or watching on YouTube. And we'll be back next week with another episode.